Hello, all you YouTubers out there. Thanks for watching My Life as a Landlord. I'm Dr. Jen. I'm excited that you are here today consuming your information by video. And you're going to watch me record podcast number 34 today. This is real estate investment. And this is all about remotely checking out properties out of state or out of province investing. Pretty cool stuff. And a lot of people are doing it remotely, all because of the internet. Thanks for watching. I'm excited. I hope you learned something. Hello, hello. Welcome to My Life as the Landlord. I'm so glad you joined me today. I am Dr. Jen, your host, your guru, your educator. I am super excited today for episode 34, which is all about real estate investing remotely. Oh my gosh, right? It's the perfect scenario. Well, you got to do it right. Just a reminder, we do 5 rotating topics that are applicable to both US and Canada. US and Canada. And this is predictable. So we have a rotating merry-go-round of topics. We start with landlord issues, tenancy issues, real estate development, real estate investment, which is today, and then other Salisbury adventures. Last week I talked about after the fact fun, all about unpermitted work. Next week I'll be talking about an other Salisbury adventure topic. Okay, so let's talk about out of state or out of province investing. Now, just a reminder, investing is placing money with an expectation of a return, okay? Placing money with an expectation of return. But when you're investing out of state or out of province, you're placing the funds with expecting a return, but you can't easily go, like physically go to that location. So you've got to do it remotely. So it just depends. I have to ask you as an investor, as a real estate investor, what is the type of investment you are making? Meaning, are you actually buying shares of a company that is buying this property that you're looking at? Or are you simply giving someone money in exchange for a promissory note, which is a promise to pay, or a mortgage, which is a recorded mortgage, a promise to pay that is recorded on the title of that property. So it depends on the type of investment. Like if you're buying shares in a company, you might want to go get on a plane, train, automobile, right? You might want to just make sure you've got it. But if it's something a little bit less, it also has to do with the dollar amount. Let's not forget that, right? So you want to make sure that what you're doing remotely makes sense for your comfort level. Now, maybe if you're investing $100, that's a lot to you. Maybe that's a little to you. It just depends on what type of investment, what are you helping to buy. Also, the credibility of who you're investing with may put some, requirement in there. If you've got a very stable company that's been doing this a long time, and they know what they're doing, they know how to do the due diligence, maybe you're less concerned. But then again, maybe this is somebody that you know remotely, from afar, or it's a family friend of a friend of a friend. Maybe it's kind of iffy. Maybe you should go and get on a plane. I don't know. So here's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, we're going to talk about remote due diligence. I do this a lot, remote due diligence. I can tell you a few things. Then we're going to talk about closing the deal, closing and doing the recording and actually transferring the property or the shares, remote closing, and then everybody's favorite, remote monitoring. Now, I'm not talking about property management. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about you as a real estate investor monitoring the status of your investment from afar. Okay, we're going to get into all these things. Let's jump in. Okay, remote due diligence. So let me just give you a little scenario. You've been made aware of this good deal, this real estate deal, and they need some money, whether it's buying shares or it's buying just helping with the down payment, and you're going to get a promissory note in the end or a mortgage in the end, but you're not getting any of the shares. There's some deal, right? There's some deal. Okay, so you've got to check this deal out. How do you check it out from afar? Well, get on the internet, and there's a way that you can do this. So wherever this property is that you're checking out, that you are potentially going to invest in, You need to look up every single court document, every single source document that you can remotely look up at, and everything from property taxes to city, county, state, regional maps. Can you search the title records? Sometimes you can buy records, sometimes you can see what's on title. You can request inspections, appraisals. You can potentially look at comps, especially if you've got a realtor involved. You can say, send me the comps. If you can't, that might be something that you might want to hire a local realtor to help you do this. Very likely, if there's a real estate transaction in motion, there can be a realtor involved. I'm not going to say always, but there can be. But potentially, if you feel you need somebody to actually be there, you could also hire someone to go there. You can hire someone. You can hire a consultant. You can hire, even say a family member and say, go there and look at this, and this, or just take pictures or get me on FaceTime or whatever. You can also hire a contractor. You can hire a realtor. You can hire an inspector to go and check out this particular property, learn a little bit more about it. But you want to look at as many things as possible without physically being there that you can. Honestly, when you're dealing with a remote property in a location that is new to you, maybe you've done some work in let's say you're looking at a property in Texas, let's just say, and you are not from Texas. You don't know anything about Texas or this county or wherever this is. You need to drill down and learn about what are the ways that you can get the source documents. Honestly, the biggest thing is you got to do, I know you're looking at the internet and all the different things that I just said. I would pick up the phone and call City Hall or the county seat and say, look, I'm looking to buy this. You could call the Chamber of Commerce that's there and just say, I'm looking to buy or be an investor in a property at such and such address. I need to know how I can look more about this. Now, there's also a couple other ways you can do this. There is usually, now it depends on your state or province or territory, because some of them are different. Some of them require attorneys. They require lawyers that have trust accounts. Sometimes you have to have an escrow officer that has a trust account, because there's got to be this third party that has a trust account to get all of the certified funds where you wire everything in and then everything is actually paid for once the deed is transferred, or the deed is transferred and then it's paid for, however it is. My point is that you've got to have you've got to educate yourself on the process in that area, right? You've got to know what's going on in that area. But you can also say, if you've got a lawyer, or if you've got a title officer, and say, look, I'm looking for, how do I get the most due diligence? How do I know if there's any liens or fines or code violations? Last week's episode was on code violations, so you might want to talk about that and just say, is this code violations? So make sure you're looking at as much as you possibly can, that you can search on the internet, you can make some phone calls, and you can hire people locally to actually go boots on the ground there. Okay, so that's how I would do remote due diligence. There's many other little tricks of the trade we'll get into in other podcasts, but that's sort of the summary, the 10,000 foot level summary. Let's talk about remote closings. Let's say you as a real estate investor is going to provide X amount of dollars to help buy or fund the renovations for a particular property. And one of the things that you want to make sure that you do is you are registering a mortgage if you hold the mortgage, or you've got to have some kind of document. Maybe you're going to be an equity investor. Maybe you're buying shares in the company, whatever it is. There's very likely going to be something that you have to sign. You might even have to get some stuff notarized. If you do have to get some stuff notarized, which does happen, you can call a mobile notary. You can also make an appointment with your local bank. There are other vendors that do walk-in notary services, which is amazing, because normally you have to pay quite a bit of money to either go to an attorney or a bank to do notary stuff. And so it can be difficult to do notary, but you can do it remotely. Now, here's the trick. If you're doing cross-border notary services, meaning let's say you're helping buy a property in Texas, but you are in Canada, you must ask the attorney or the title officer in Texas if a Canadian notary is okay. We've run into this quite a bit, that you've got to make sure that whatever country is okay with the other one, or maybe you're in Mexico and you're trying to close on this deal. If you have to have a US notary, or you have to have a Canadian notary, or whatever it is that you have to have, make sure you ask that question, because closing remotely can get a little weird and it can come from sort of out of the blue. So you need to ask those questions. Okay, so you've done your remote due diligence, you've done your remote closing. Now let's talk about the monitoring of your investment, right? Let's talk about all this. Monitoring your investment remotely, it completely depends on the property and the business itself. Are these apartments? Is this a new build? Is there property managers involved? What is it that you are going to expect to get on an ongoing basis based on your investment? Is this something that you decided that you wanted to invest for 5 years or 5 months? So it just depends on how you've set it up, right? It's how you've set it up. So if you've got, let's say you've got you helped buy a property that is a bunch of apartments, and there's a property management and company in place, and you're going to get quarterly statements, and you're going to get annual dividends, let's just say, based on your investment. Well, that may be the only communication you have that will give you some updates on how this property is doing. You'll get quarterly statements and then yearly dividends. Is that okay? Is that enough? Do you want more? You need to communicate with those that you've invested this money with. One of the other things that you might get is you might get, if you're in the US, you might get a 1099 for interest at the end of the year. Or if you're in Canada, a T5 for the interest paid to you. And so you need to kind of understand how this looks. But the other thing is that it's not all about the money necessarily as a real estate investor. That money represents how well the business is going and how healthy that property is. You want to talk about different ways that you can gauge and make your properties very healthy and then resulting in profitability and great communities to live in. That is really what a good real estate investor is investing in, is improving communities. So you want to also make sure that you are watching and reviewing if there is issues in the neighborhood, if, is it turned into sort of the ghetto around your investment? Maybe there was a fire loss next door and you don't know about it. So there's a lot of things that you need to know as a real estate investor that is about money, because real estate investing is about money. You're investing money with an expected return, but you're also looking at the non-monetary aspect of it. And so I encourage you, as a real estate investor, don't just look at the numbers. Don't just look at the numbers. Same thing with due diligence. You're going to look at the property, you're going to look at everything, but zoom out. And knowing that, for example, in the I-35 corridor between San Antonio and Austin, knowing that Mr. Elon Musk is building a gigafactory right outside Austin, you think that impacted the real estate around Austin? Of course it did. So, but that had nothing to do with the monetary value of it, just knowing the aspect, the employment, and who are the employment centers, who's coming in, who's going out, is Amazon moving in, is United making a new hub? All these questions that you can push in, and the best source for both the due diligence and the monitoring as you go can be your property managers on the ground. But I also utilize the local chambers of commerce. You've got to make sure that you're talking to the local chambers of commerce about the properties, about the overall economic viability for your investment. Okay, so there you go. This is a very high level, out of state, out of province investing remotely podcast. We talked about remote due diligence, remote closing, remote monitoring, ongoing monitoring, both monetary and non-monetary. But here's your call to action. I want you to look up the entity in your local state or province that does all of the recordings on title. Now, If you don't know what that means, just give me a second here. You might have to call a lawyer, a title company, or even your county clerk, even City Hall. They might know what to do, but you're looking for the entity in your state or province that records the documents on title. Here's what I mean. In Hawaii, it's called the Bureau of Conveyances. In British Columbia, it's called BC Land Title and Survey. And I looked up the one in Texas and I got a little bit confused. I would actually have to call the county clerk in Texas, one of the county clerks, because you want to know, actually, here's one of the tricks of this, is that if you know the name of the entity that records the documents on title, it is very likely, not all of them do it, it is very likely that you can get a login for that entity and potentially either view or pay for recorded documents on the title of the property that you're looking at. It can happen. Now, I have to tell you, as technology evolves, it can get crazier and crazier. I've seen this happen where I can see documents one week and then they do a software update, and then who knows, I can barely do a search. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. The default is pick up the phone and call your local city or your county or your regional district and ask them and tell them that you were listening to this podcast and this crazy lady telling you to look up the entity that records documents on title. There you go. There's your call to action. All right. As always, let me know your comments, your questions on our Facebook group for My Life as a Landlord, or in YouTube. You can comment on the episode 34 comment area for My Life as a Landlord. And please know that I create the content for my next podcasts in my 5 rotating merry-go-round topics. I create all of that based on your questions and comments. So if you've got an idea, a story, a question, shoot it my way. Let's get the conversation going. In the meantime, join me for next week's podcast, which is another Salisbury adventure. For those of you who may not know, I was on a TV show on the Discovery Channel. Next week is episode 35, and the title of it is Not Canada's Greatest Know-It-All. I will see you there. Thanks for listening. Bye for now. Okay, there you have it. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something.